Father Barnabas Powell is pastor of Saints Raphael, Nicholas, and Irene, Greek Orthodox Church of Cumming, Georgia, USA. Here's Father Barnabas with Sunday's homily.
If this faith can't interrupt your life or doesn't interrupt your life, you're just a member of a club. If you don't allow your faith to interrupt your life, you're just a member of a club. You're just Greek or Russian or Southern or whatever you happen to be. That's all you are. Nothing more. You're just playing games. You're not really serious about the faith. It's just a little decoration you use to put a little spice on your food. That's it. If the faith can't interrupt your life, you need to revisit your priorities. And don't think I'm anything for heaven's sake. This isn't because I have great faith. I just want to go to heaven. I really do. It's very much like our gospel lesson today. Because we're confronted in this story that we see. Jesus goes to this area and there are two men filled with demons that are plaguing the area. The scripture says, people won't even walk that way anymore because these guys are whacked out. I look at some of the behavior on our TV screens in some of our cities all across the world. By the way, do you know that the crime rate, the murder rate has soared in big cities all over this country? That's what happens, ladies and gentlemen, when life is rejected and death is embraced. That's the results. But the reality is as these guys were in these tombs, isn't it interesting? Have you ever noticed that the devil loves to be around death? The devil loves to be around death. The devil loves to be around turmoil and crisis and chaos and drama. The devil loves that. That just feeds him. Drama is his favorite thing because it gives him room to create bitterness and anger and backbiting and hurt feelings and broken relationships, and that feels like death. Ask anybody who has ever gone through a divorce. It feels like somebody died. So the reality is, these men were in these tombs because that's where they belonged. They had been given over to being slaves to death. And Jesus comes their way, and they immediately run out and said, "Hey, wait a second. Have you come here to torment us before the time?" By the way, this is free, won't cost you anything. The time. You know what that means? The final judgment. When everything's going to be wrapped up. And everybody's going to get what they've always hoped for. They're going to get treated fairly. Unless you're smart enough to ask for mercy. Are you here to torment us before the time? And then they say, now listen, if you're going to send us out, for heaven's sake, please just put us in these pigs. And Jesus simply says one word to them. They do most of the talking in this dialogue. Jesus simply says one word to them. Go. And they enter into the herd of swine, and the herd of swine runs down this steep bank into the ocean, and they all drown and die. Well, the herdsmen just saw their year's salary go down the drain. They went back to the city and said, "This is what happened." And they met Jesus before he got into the city, and they said, "Listen, we heard what happened. Please leave. Don't stay among us." Isn't that fascinating? Now, what does that tell us about these people that Jesus confronts today? What does that invite us to look at in our own selves? First off, these people had already written these two guys off. They won't walk by there anymore. They've already written them off. Too far gone. Ain't no use messing with these two guys. They're crazy as a bed bug. I don't know if they had that saying back then or not. But we're just gonna pretend they're not here. That's what a lot of us do with problems in our lives. We dismiss them, or we just pretend. Let's just pretend they're not here. And invariably, the problems in our lives that we ignore, the problems in our lives that we are asleep to, the problems in our lives that we are deluded to or in a fog about. Hence the reason why the church has designed herself the way she has, to wake us up to ourselves so that we can have the courage and the grace and the strength to confront our challenges in our lives instead of ignoring them, because ignoring them, they never go away. They just fester and get worse. But these folks had already written off these two guys. Now these two guys are well, and they're healed, and they're better. They can now enter into relationships again. They can now become part of the community again. But what do these villagers do? They say, Lord, please leave here. Following you is too expensive. It's just cost us a herd of swine. Please leave. When I consider this stark and, frankly, if you have any sense at all about you, this is disturbing. I always wondered why this was in the Gospels, because it always sounded strange. Because other places, when Jesus healed somebody, especially when he healed another demoniac, the people, hey, stay. In fact, there was one time when he was in a Samaritan city, a group of Xeni, for heaven's sake. And they said, would you please stay? And so he did. But this village says, please leave. It's too expensive to follow you. It costs too much for us to take you seriously, for us to allow you to disrupt and interrupt our lives or our priorities or what we think is important. It's too much. Please leave. I guess I should hand it to them that they were at least honest. But what a powerful and stark and, again, frankly, disturbing display of spiritual blindness. That when confronted with the opportunity for freedom and deliverance from death, this village chose to say it's too expensive to have you here. It's too expensive to embrace what you're saying, what you're doing, how you're inviting us to live and to know ourselves. We would rather stay dead. Now, before you're too harsh on these people, let me fix that. Before I'm too harsh on these people, I have to examine in my heart where I have subtly or not so subtly invited Jesus Christ to leave when it came to a point in my life where I discovered that to follow Christ was going to be expensive. That to follow Christ was going to be difficult. That to follow Christ was going to cost me something. That to follow Christ was going to insist that I face my ego, that I face my will, that I face my passions, that I face my fears, that I face my habits, that I face my addictions, that I face those things that are keeping me enslaved to myself. And I've said to Christ, either through my actions or my behavior or my attitude or my ignorance, please leave. It's too expensive to follow you. I'd rather do this. When we were journeying to Orthodoxy buddy of mine, Pentecostal pastor friend of mine, pulled me off to the side. And he saw the writing on the wall. He saw that I was going to leave. And he pulled me off to the side and he said, Brother Powell, is there any way I can talk you out of this? There's this big church that I can put you in as pastor, and you'll be great there. I was too stupid to know what was going to happen to say anything better. So I told him, no, thank you. I'd rather follow Christ. Those are big decisions. But brothers and sisters, make no mistake about it, in moments throughout your day today, there will be a time when you will be invited to decide, do you want Christ to stay or do you want Him to leave? Young people are making that decision all over the place when they make the choices that they make. This past week, I sat my daughter down and we read an article together about the rampant viral situation of gender dysphoria. You know what gender dysphoria is? Can't tell if I'm a man or a woman. In high schools and middle schools. And I just asked her to read it with me and just teach me what's going on in your world. And my daughter was saying, well, it's not so much a transgender thing as it is that people are deciding they're bisexual or they have same-sex attraction. In middle school. I thought holding hands with Shelley Anderson was the height of my whole day. Really cute kid, by the way. Never mind. In middle school. And young people are making choices. And they're making choices, brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, dads and moms. They're making choices based on the examples you show them. How terrifying is that? God have mercy on me and save me. They're basing their choices on that, and they're inviting Christ to either to stay or to leave. You do that in your business decisions when you're deciding whether you're going to be ethical or you're going to shave a little bit to make a little more money. You're inviting Christ to either to stay or to leave. In your marriages, in your home life, in your heart of hearts, when it's easier to stay asleep than get up and come to church, when it's easier to embrace fear rather than faith, when the character of our lives and the courage of our lives are tested, we are at that moment understand beyond any shadow of a doubt, brothers and sisters, you are at that moment with these villagers. Will you allow Christ to stay or will you ask Him to leave? It's too expensive to follow you. It's going to cost me too much of what I want to follow you. So for heaven's sake, don't think anything about Father Barnabas shaving off a bit of his vacation to make sure that there's liturgy here. It's not that great a feat when you understand what's actually going on when we pray. When you finally break through the hobby mentality of Christianity and you actually become what you say you are. Makes perfect sense that this would happen. Makes perfect sense. It's perfectly justifiable. Oh, but Father, you need the rest. I'll rest when I'm dead. This is priority, my brothers and sisters. Do you understand that? This is priority because this will form you. Moms and dads, this will teach you how to teach your teenagers how to invite Christ to stay in their lives in the midst of the chaos of this current society. The forming and the shaping of these prayers and this faith teaches us how to become truly human. Today we celebrate the newly revealed Saint Paisios the Athonite. And this holy, modern saint, one of us, only died a few years ago, left us an example of what it looks like to say to Jesus Christ, "Stay, I'm willing to pay the price to have you in my life. I'm willing to pay the price no matter what it costs. No matter what it costs, it's cheaper than the slavery of death. No matter what it costs, stay, Jesus. Stay here with us. Stay." Amen.
You can follow Father Barnabas on YouTube or on our church website at stsrni.org. Thank you for watching.